I always like a jelly baby. Sadly, this packet seems to be out of jelly babies.
Would you like a jelly baby?
Oh, yes, please. One slight problem. I seem to be out of jelly babies, I think.
Yes, yes.
I ate them all. More in my tummy, so just wait here. I'll go and get some more. Oh well, I suppose it would have been an exploding jelly baby anyway then. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to this review of Johnny English Strikes Again. Actually, at the time of recording this, having just got back from it, but got back from it just a bit ago. Definitely, it finished within the last hour. Also, I've been drinking the water I had whilst I was watching it, that I didn't finish, apart from a little bit at the top that I added, which may now have just been drunken. So the plot of Johnny English Strikes Again is hapless secret agent, or is it helpless? Hapless, helpless, something along those lines. Basically, accident-prone super spy Johnny English is called out of retirement to track down a master hacker who has revealed the secret identities of every MI7 agent. Skyfall. So Johnny, along with his old friend Boff, have to go and hunt down this master hacker. At the same time, there is a Russian agent played by Bond girl Ugalenko. She was Camille in Quantum of Solace, basically. So she's also, for some reason, infiltrating the villain's organisation. So, I don't know, she can assassinate him or something. The Russians obviously know something about him, and they don't really explain why she's there. All we know is that she's Russian intelligence, and she's infiltrated the place. No, maybe he'd had a deal with the Russians, but they didn't feel... No, actually, no. If he had a deal with the Russians, he'd be quite friendly with them. Never mind. Theories aside. So, at the same time, she's been sent after the guy. And also, they have to deal with each other, as well as also stop the master hacker, who turns out is trying to get to a partner with the Prime Minister and other nations, so he can have total domination of basically the internet. I don't know, but he's making the politicians believe he's trying to help them in a way, especially the UK, with all the problems, and he's causing all the cyber hacks. Not just the reveal of MI7 agents, but pretty much lots of other stuff. Traffic in London is stopped. All trains, including London Overground services, are sent to Bristol Temple Meads, and the London Eye gets a bit of a spin. Plus maybe some others. So Johnny and Boff, from the first film, have to stop the villain. And hilarity ensues. And that's basically the plot of Johnny English Strikes Again. So this film is the third entry in the Johnny English trilogy now. The Johnny English trilogy could possibly be one of my favourite trilogies of all time. It's basically a guilty pleasure series. All of them are very funny, and they all have very good plots. Okay, some people may debate that on the first one. But the other two, definitely. And this film definitely has the best story and the most humour, with the tracking of the mysterious a hacker, but going old school because otherwise he might notice them. At the same time, Johnny is trying to still show he's got it. Maybe not as much as in the last film, but he is still trying to show he's got it in a new age with modern technology and younger people basically knowing what they're doing with the tech. There's even a nice young quartermaster-esque character in the film. Patch was basically the same type of character in the last one, but this time they've kind of done a Ben Whishaw like character for this one, as this film is kind of like a parody spoof of Skyfall and Spectre, similar to how the last film was of Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, and the one before of the previous 20 Bond films. Although not as much spoofing the Bond stuff in that one, more of that was in the second film. There's also a secretary to the third Pegasus in this franchise, who is very Naomi Harris referencey, young black woman, possibly in her late 20s or early 30s, and an M who's not too dissimilar to Ray Fiennes, but maybe slightly younger. So you can tell it's a very Skyfall, Spectre, possibly Bond 25 feel. Rowan Atkinson probably does his best performance as Johnny English in this film, and one of his best performances, full stop. And Ben Miller is a welcome return as Boff after a noticeable absence in the last film. He did get a deleted scene, which, had that been included in the last film, this film would have retconned that. So the fact that the scene was him basically meeting up with Johnny at just before meeting the second Pegasus, Pamela, and they were talking about Boff having a family now. He was married and had children downstairs, and Johnny was mentioning how things had changed. In this film, Boff actually tells Johnny that he is now married, and Johnny hadn't known that. So the fact that that scene from John English 2 had been cut means this film's not really retconning that. However, in my mind's continuity, that would have been canon until now, where it's been retconned a bit. So they kind of have dodged the bullet if they had included the other scene in the second film. On the other hand, you could see it as Boff's got another wife, or rewrite it to say that his wife's in the Navy, which is the one in this film, basically. And said Boff's wife is actually really helpful in the last act, so she gives them a lift to the final showdown location, and also gives the go-ahead to an attack, which basically helps stop the villain's evil plan. So that's great, and she does a good job, the actress playing Boff's wife. And it's really well executed. There's a lot of funny scenes, including a car chase, which ends with Boff and Johnny stopping because there's no more fuel in the tank. And the infiltration on the boat, where Johnny and Boff accidentally cause all the magnets to come up to their magnetic boots, and then later Johnny falls on from the top of the boat to the bottom instead of into the sea. And of course the famous scene from the trailers where Johnny is basically wearing virtual reality glasses, and it's a part of a training exercise, but he hasn't pressed go on the walking thing, so he accidentally goes into the streets of London and causes chaos. That was probably the best scene. It was also the most unnecessary, I have to say. That is one downside. It wasn't really as necessary. It's just a really good and really funny scene. But it's still a welcome scene. It's such a good scene. And also helps Johnny train for his infiltration of the villain's house. in a scene later. The villain also is done really well. You're not actually sure whether he is the villain at first, but then, yes, it is made very clear he is indeed the villain. So it's kind of a bit of a Simon and Rose thing, except it's revealed a bit more like Pascal. No, actually, it's a bit more like Simon and Rose. Because with him, he seems to be a good guy. Then you kind of like, oh, maybe he isn't, maybe he's not. And then it does turn out that he is the villain. And it's kind of the same here, except this time he's not really an ally of Johnny, but rather someone who could potentially help the country. Which is kind of like a Pascal Savage kind of thing, in a way. To be honest, I think, whilst Pascal to Savage, I would say Ambrose is the best villain, but Pascal's my favourite. He's so funny, and John Malkovich is so fantastic in the role, and his French accent is perfection. It's magnifique. I screwed that up. Even Rowan Atkinson and Ben Miller's French accents in this film, when they're pretending to be waiters, couldn't match John Malkovich's one from the first film. And yeah, they go to France quite a lot in these films, don't they? This one's probably the most noticeable, as they're in France for at least the first half of the film, first third, once they get their mission sorted and before they come back. So yeah, they're in France quite a lot. I will say Uga Karolinko actually doesn't really get that much to do in the film after the French stuff is done. She's there quite a bit in the French stuff, and again, you're not really sure if she's a villain. She might even have been, I was actually thinking she might even be the villain, and they might actually be introducing her quite early on, a bit like Pascal, to be honest. But it turns out she's a bit like, another character from the first film. It was Lorna's character from the first film was very similar to this one, except it was pretty much made soon that she was obviously a goodie, in a way. She was an ally. Whilst this time it's a bit more uncertain. You're actually thinking that this character, I can't actually remember this character's name, the one in the third film, whether she actually is a bad guy or whether she is a goodie. There is at one point where she is ordered by her superiors, the Russians, to kill Johnny English because he's kind of interfering. They don't really have anything to do with him. They don't really want him dead. They just want him out of the way because he may be interfering. So she tries to kill him then, and then later he meets up with her again in Britain, and then later, after all, she's still undercover, and then later, after she's been exposed because the bad guy knew she was a Russian intelligence agent all along. Why he didn't confront her sooner, I don't know, but oh well. But then they start working together after that. So, yeah, all's well, I guess, with those two characters. And it's really, like I said, it's after the French stuff that she really doesn't get that much to do. Even in the last couple of scenes, she doesn't really get much to do, apart from hide Johnny's willy from being on display, if it was on display. His trousers kind of drop down at one point at the end, so she hides that with the suit of armour helmet. But besides that, and telling Johnny that the villain's escaping and getting away, she doesn't really do that much to do in the last half. So her character is better on in the third half, but the second and third acts, she's not that great of a character besides just being there. Boff actually got more to do quite a lot. In fact, I think Boff's got even more to do in this film than the first one. And it's him that convinces Johnny English to keep going with the mission in this film. As like in the first film, he gets kicked off the case when he screws up a lot, this time by the Prime Minister instead of Pegasus. And he gets fired, and it's Boff who has to convince him to come back. Not too dissimilar to Lorna convincing him in the first film, and then Johnny convincing Tucker to help him in the second. Also, Johnny's walking in the rain, just like in the first film. To me, this film is trying to be a homage to the first installments with bits of the second thrown in. But that, at the same time, it's still a very good new story for the characters to go on. And it's all very good. And Emma Thompson is brilliant as the Prime Minister. And the new Pegasus is also pretty good. I may even prefer him to the late, great Tim Pickett-Smith's version. And maybe even Gillian Anderson's one as well. That one that was the only one we actually knew the name of the Pegasus. Pamela, what was her surname? Was it Anderson? Sounds like an actress. No, Thornton. Pamela Thornton was the name of the second Pegasus, but the other two we don't know. Also, this is also the third Prime Minister in the films, Emma Thompson's one. We had one in the first film which had a bit to do, but not as much as this one. And one in the second film who had even less to do, but was there for the plot purposes. So yeah, this is probably the most... I think it's the least Pegasus, but the most Prime Minister stuff happening in this film. And like I said, the villain's great. Side characters, not really that many, apart from the noticeable MI6 people that Kevin Eldon, voice of Penfold in the new Danger Mouse, gets a cameo at the start. But besides them, there isn't really that many noticeable side characters. Not really, it's mainly focused on the main characters. The closest you get outside of the MI6, not 6-7 people, are probably henchmen. And also Boff's wife. I suppose she's the most noticeable side character. She does a really great job, like I said earlier. And yeah, and final thing, the music. The music for the franchise has been one of the best things of the franchise. However, this time round, I don't think they've quite got it as good as the other two films. I thought the music for those two were amazing. And the first film especially I really loved. And the second film was also loved. Maybe not as much, but still fantastic. This one, I do like it. But I don't think it's quite up there with the first two. It's not really good. Maybe on a rewatch I will like it more. I will say there are times where you do get a reference of the theme from the first film. The second film also hints at this film in its music at the start. With this one, it's more at the end of the credits. But it's the music for what it is. It's still really good, and it's still really well done. So I praise the composer. I just don't think it's up to the same standards as the first two films. If there's anything this film doesn't do as well as the other two, it is the music. But everything else pretty much seems to be either an improvement or the best. This is the best it's been. This is definitely the best film. It's definitely got the best performances, certainly from the leading actors. Best story, best cinematography and editing, potentially. Effects. Well, there is one noticeable bit where you do see a CGI, or potentially CGI, submarine, yacht and castle. But besides that, the effects are looking great. The practical stuff as well. The virtual reality stuff actually does look like what it would be a virtual reality and possibly a video game. And that works really well, and it's really funny seeing cutting back and forth between virtual reality and what's actually happening in the real world, as well as seeing Johnny's eyes. That was really good. So, overall, Johnny English Strikes Again is a brilliant third and currently latest and best instalment of the Johnny English trilogy, but it's not completely perfect. Like I said, the music score isn't quite as good. Some of the jokes also getting in the way of the story. Not as much as the last two films, but there are a few times, and it can be quite noticeable. And yeah, sometimes the jokes get in the way of the plot. But even with a comedy, you have to be careful with that. But it's all done really well, and despite a few nitpicks, it's still a great film. It's not quite 10 out of 10, but it's still a pretty brilliant movie. So I'm going to give Johnny English Strikes Again a 9 out of 10. I think everything just works so well. This is definitely the best in the trilogy. Like I said, the only thing that it just wasn't as great as the other two was the music. The car, I would also say, is the... I think the best car is actually from the second film. So, I would say this... No, I think this is a better car than the first. We're coming to the bottom of the barrels when we're coming to comparisons to the other movies when you're talking about the cars. Also, Johnny's a school teacher at the start and end of the film, and there's a nice little... Each film kind of ends with Johnny causing or having a problem taking place. In the first film, he accidentally presses a ejector seat button for Lorna to fly out of the car. Second film, he attacks the Queen, thinking it's the killer Queen. In this film, the headmaster is about to eat an exploding jelly baby. Well, a jelly baby that would explode. The Fourth Doctor would approve, and so would Mr. TARDIS. So, yeah, that's about it for the... Oh, and that final scene does feel reminiscent of the second film. So, that's it from my review of Johnny English Strikes Again. No known reviews for this channel besides Doctor Who, Series 11. The next one should be The Ghost Monument. But on Nicholas Payne Retro, there should be a whole bunch of reviews coming up. Some of them have been edited. 6 have been filmed. 4 have been edited. There may be a few more coming, being filmed. Yes, there will be a few more being filmed shortly afterwards. So expect about between 6 and 9, maybe even 10 reviews by the time they start coming out, plus a ranking. Not the Terminator one, no, this will actually be Lethal Weapons ranking, the Lethal Weapon films. The Terminator ranking will probably come next month. And also, 2015 films, the next one I want to watch after I've seen Lethal Weapon Spring 4, the next one I want to watch, which will have a review on this channel along with all the other 2015 films, I'm hoping is Spectre, the latest James Bond film, as I'll be going into 2 James Bond films a month on the Retro channel following Spectre, but excluding Spectre because that's 2015. So Spectre on this channel either end of October or start of November, and then 2 Bond films a month, including the unofficials and the documentary Everything or Nothing, between November 2018 and, well, that's going to make it 27. It's going to make 27, excluding Spectre, so probably by the end of 2019. So there'll be, with the exception of the, I think, November 2018 to November 2019, you'll get 2 Bond reviews a month on Retro, plus 1 more in December, which should hopefully be Skyfall, the best. And then we're all ready for Bond 25 in February 2020. Which will be on this channel. Also, one more thing. I've always noticed this. Johnny English came out the year after Die Another Day. Johnny English Reborn came out the year before Skyfall. And this film, Johnny English Strikes Again, would have come out the year before Bond 25, had Bond 25 kept its October-November 2019 release date. Now it'll be 2 years ahead. Also, it's possible. Rowan Atkinson has said he does enjoy playing Johnny English, so whilst it's not likely, a 4th Johnny English film could still be on the cards. If they do decide to do it, I hope it's done sooner than the other times. The first sequel took about 8 years to make, and then this one 7 years. Well, not make, but that's the gaps between each film. So hopefully it'll be 5, maybe 6 at most for the next one, if they can still do one. But I wouldn't hold your breath for it, but still, if there is the possibility of a Johnny English 4, then I'm totally game. I was actually hoping there'd be a 3rd one, and by God, we got a 3rd one, yes! So, yep, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. I always did like jelly babies, but sadly it appears that this packet is out.
Would you also like a jelly baby?
Oh, yes, please.
I still haven't got any.
I still got to go back to my TARDIS and get the infinite supply stock.
But I will get you some jelly babies when I can. Oh, the other chap I spoke to earlier, the Mr. Boff. I didn't ask his name. I just thought it was Mr. Boff. I read the subtitles. I read the name of the book. Hey, cheerio, my dears.
I'll be back soon with those jelly babies. I should have enough supply. Oh. It's alright, I've got headmastery stuff to do anyway. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne YouTube channel. Okay. Excuse me. What's her name? It's Natalie Imbrugler's character. The name will be down below. I remember the scene. I'm remembering the scene where Johnny says her name, but it's Lorna. That's it. In this film, the headmaster is about to eat an exploding jelly baby. The Fourth Doctor will improve. Oh, I said that too fast. Excuse me. Did I say 2025? I meant 2020. If I said 2025, I meant 2020. So, thank you for watching this review, and also one more thing. Enjoy the sketches. Oh well, probably would have been an exploding jelly baby. Oh well, it would have been. Hope that got my head in.
Would you like a jelly baby? What?